One of the problems when you're preaching somewhere where you're not used to is you don't quite know what's going to be here. And I was thinking, well, there's sure to be the icon of this year of mercy. And there is. There's a couple of big ones over there on the left-hand side of the church. So it's fine for you people that can see it. For you people down here, maybe if you've bought binoculars, you can also see the image on the candles up the front here. But if you haven't bought your binoculars, and if you can't see the images, I'll just remind you once again what's on the icon of this year of mercy. And it's an image of Jesus with a man draped over his shoulders, a lost soul. And Jesus is carrying him. And each of them are gazing into each other's eyes. It's a beautiful image because Jesus and the man that he is carrying look very much alike. And that's right, isn't it? Because Jesus has become one like us in all things but sin. He's become one with us. And no one, not one of us, is excluded from the outreach of his mercy. But there's something more amazing about the icon. And I invite you, before you leave the cathedral tonight, to go and have a look at it. Because you can only see three eyes. Because one of the eyes of Jesus is merged with the eye of the man he is carrying. And that reminds us that Jesus sees us not just through divine eyes, but human eyes. And it reminds us that we too are to see Jesus not only with human eyes, but eyes that see into the very divine. Because that's why we've been created. That's why we've been redeemed. And that's why the Spirit is given to us as we constantly are called into that divine life. That divine life, that divine love, that divine mercy. Because the call to each one of us is that call to be merciful like the Father. So to walk in love and mercy, first of all, we have to have an experience of that love and mercy, don't we? And that was the amazing thing people experienced with Jesus. They experienced the love and mercy of God in a new way, in a way that they could reach out and touch, in a way that radically changed their way of looking at things. Jesus just didn't come talking about the law. And that's often what we reduce mercy to, isn't it? You know, we make a mistake, we break a law, we break a commandment, and we come back to God, or we may not come back to God, and we rush off to confession, Lord, have mercy. But it's not just about that. It's not that simple. And that's what the prophets kept reminding the people of Israel. You know, that all out their fasting, all their sacrifices, all their ritual purity were absolutely useless unless their hearts were being transformed. Unless the heart, the merciful heart of God, took flesh in their hearts. But going back to the icon, though seeing through Jesus' eyes. That's what we get a glimpse of in tonight's gospel. Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, and they went up the mountain, Mount Tabor, the mountain of the Transfiguration. And remember that the mountain is the place where God dwells. God dwells in the heights. So they went to this place of God, and there they had an encounter with God. If you were to go there today, you would have that same encounter because the road is too narrow and windy for buses. So you go up in little minivans who are driven by kamikaze pilots at high speed around all the twisting turns, and death's just around the corner every moment of the journey up and down, and you are seriously praying, Lord, have mercy, because you just don't know what's coming. But then saying, Lord, have mercy, out of fear, we're called to so much more. There on the mountaintop, Peter, James, and John saw Jesus transfigured. They saw Jesus in his glory. Jesus is seen not only as glory, but the face of the Father's mercy. And Peter instinctively knew that he and James and John belong there. Lord, it's wonderful to be here. Let's build 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. And then they were covered by the cloud, the Shekinah, the divine cloud, the presence of God. And they heard the voice say, "This is my chosen Son. Listen to him." But the reality is, they had to come down from the mountain. Because mercy is not just found when we get that glimpse of heaven or when we get to heaven. Mercy is to be experienced here and now in the midst and the messiness of our daily lives. But we too have to make a journey, not up a mountain, but from the head to the heart. It's easy to say, Lord, have mercy, or I forgive you up here. It's a lot harder to do it from here. Because it's in our hearts that God dwells in us. This is the place of God that we must make the journey to. Not climbing the mountain, but the journey deep into our heart so that we might truly discover this God of mercy and truly discover who we are, who he calls to be merciful like him. And in this journey of life, we get glimpses of these transfiguration moments. For me, the perhaps greatest one that I've experienced was when I was working at Holy Cross Seminary as the formation director. And we're going on our summer break when I got a phone call to say that one of our students had been attacked. One of his friends was going home, and so they decided, a group of friends, that they were going to stay up all night until he had to go to the airport for a 5 o'clock check-in in the morning. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, the seminarian was walking home to the presbytery where he was living, and a car pulled up beside him. And 2 guys jumped out and tried to grab the bag he was carrying. And there was no way the seminarian was going to let them have it. There was nothing in it, but it was the principle. And they got one of those wheel braces, you know, that undo the nuts on the car, and they whacked him over the skull with it. Now, luckily, there was people who witnessed it. Within 2 minutes, the ambulance was there, the police caught the people, but the seminarian ended up in Auckland Hospital critically ill. I was back in Auckland a few days later and went to see him, and his face was a mess. It was battered and bruised. He had to have 2 more operations to repair the damage to his skull. But he was strangely peaceful. He was strangely peaceful. And I didn't really appreciate why at that particular time. The next year when we returned to the seminary, he came into my office one day and he said, "Father Steve, I've had a call from the police. They want me to do a restorative justice process with one of the guys who attacked me. What's that?" And I explained to him what restorative justice meant. That it was often somebody that the police didn't really want to put through the normal court system because there was a hope that they might be changed. That this might have been their first offence. And so it would mean meeting the person who had attacked him and listening to their story. And as part of it, he would be asked for forgiveness. So I said, go away and think about it. Don't make your answer straight away. Go and pray about it, think about it. And he came back a couple of days later and he said, yes, I'll do it, but will you come with me as one of my support people? I said, that's fine. So a few weeks later, we went to this meeting, and here was one of the guys who attacked him. And he told the seminarian his story. He'd grown up in a country which had known war and violence. He'd come here as a refugee, and he got in with the wrong crowds. He was using drugs to escape the memories of what had happened to him, and that was what the attack was all about, getting money for drugs. He had his girlfriend with him, but his family didn't come. They were so ashamed of what he had done. At the end of it, he asked the seminarian for forgiveness. And the seminarian said to him, you know, I'm really happy to be here today, to hear your story, to meet you, to be able to talk to you. He said, I want you to know that even when I was lying in Auckland Hospital, I forgave you. And that explained to me why he was so peaceful. He said, but I'm really pleased to meet you today because when I forgave you at Auckland Hospital, I forgave you from my head. But today, I want to forgive you from the bottom of my heart. You are not to carry any guilt about this. I forgive you. But I'm giving you a gift, that gift to start again. You must never do anything like this in the future. You must change your life. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. For there we saw divine mercy. There the seminarian became a sacrament of mercy. There we saw someone who was merciful like the Father. He gave mercy not out of fear, but because Jesus' way of mercy was the only way that both the victim and the assailant could move forward. It was the only way that what was lost could be restored. That seminarian will be ordained a priest of Auckland Diocese later this year. In a recent issue of the London Tablet, Daniel O'Leary wrote, "Divinity lies at the heart of all of us, of every single thing that we do, think, and say. And yet at the same time, God needs our cooperation to reach a radically distorted humanity. This is an astonishing dimension of incarnation. That we ourselves, in all our contradictions and imperfections, are the living sacraments of God's incarnate mercy. A mercy that cannot be shown or received except through us." So when Pope Francis reminds us that Jesus is the face of the Father's mercy, we must realize that we too are called to become reflections of that mercy, reflections of Christ's face of mercy, to be merciful like the Father. And that is what this week, this Congress, is all about. May it be a time of blessing for you all as you discover new ways to walk in love and mercy.